looks like you had your wish
Ooh,
here.
let's go. Some Yawgmoth. Okay, yeah, this is the deck that takes it down. You watch. Let me have a look at how many endurances. 2 endurances in the main.
I like
4,
it. Already looking for the incidental graveyard hate.
4 active Soul Cauldrons in the main. Graveyard Hate. Boom. Instant. Easy. And this is playing one of the new cards, Dredge's Insight. Now, I feel like I'm going to take your responsibility a lot here, and I'm going to be like, could be a bit of an expert involved.
Yeah, perfect. Go
This
ahead.
is my deck. This is what I have a lot of fun with. Dredge's Insight, one of the new cards from Aether Drift. This card enables a lot more combos really quick with Yawgmoth. Like, there's an infinite life combo now, which is just like, bam, infinite life. And not many
Right.
decks in the format can be infinite life. Fortunately, Breach is one of them, but it really puts this extra angle on this deck and how good and explosive it can be. So let's get down to the table. Oh, weirdly, so again, story time for everybody here. So Phil at the bottom of our screen, I was actually meant to be staying at his house this weekend to go cast this in face to face, be there at the venue itself. But I was going to stay with this gentleman. He is a lovely man and always plays Yawgmoth. He's definitely deep in the Yawgmoth community. Really enjoys this deck. Has put up some good finishes around Europe. But every time I see him, he just reminds me about the time that I had to spend 20 euros on one Coke. Different story. We'll come back to that later on if we've got time.
In the meantime, we have dual decks, Young Wolf versus Tamio here with the two 1-drops of choice.
What's the best 1-drop out of the both?
Out of those two, yeah, it's hard to compete with Tamio. I feel like Young Wolf needs a bit more help to be a viable Magic card.
I would say I would agree with you, but we're going to get in there for point of damage. Tested him, love it.
Yeah.
And then Ag's Soul Cauldron is going to be our turn 2. That is exactly the turn we want it right now. We can start chipping away at the graveyard, and it's also we can target what we exile from that graveyard, which is a huge help. Means Marco's going to have to really choose the time he wants to try and combo off, if that is the way he wants to try and win this game. As
nice Flame of Anor here. I think we learned previously the Marco has a single copy of that card in the deck, but then again, he put it in the deck instead of a random draw spell or a random removal spell for, partially this reason. Oh, yeah, he even got to flip the Tamio. Wow.
Yeah, and he gets to flip the Tamio, tick it up. So yeah, at the minute, I would say Tamio 1, Young Wolf 0.
Yeah, but hopefully things can change if we're taking Felipe's point of view here, because the Undying creature is extremely potent with good old Yawgmoth, the Thoran Physician.
Well, they actually get they're ramped up quite a bit as well now because of the Dredge's Insight. So if we can get Soul Cauldron, I was about to say this is more a Soul Cauldron deck now than a Yawgmoth deck. Because if we could get something like a Dredge's Insight and get a Walking Ballista in the graveyard, then that's basically infinite life.
So let's see. Dredger's Insight, 1 and a green enchantment. Whenever one or more artifact and or creature cards leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. When this enchantment enters, mill 4 cards. You may put an artifact, creature, or land from among them into your hand. So that's basically a little bit of a cantrip action. And maybe walk us through how you get infinite life on that one. I'm a little bit puzzled.
So let's say there's a Walking Ballista goes into the graveyard, and we eat the Walking Ballista with our Soul Cauldron.
Soul Cauldron. So it leaves the graveyard.
So it's left the graveyard. Now, anything with a +1/+1 counter on it is going to have Walking Ballista's ability. Remove a +1/+1 counter and do a point of damage. The Young Wolf with Undying, if it doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it, it comes back. So you remove the +1/+1 counter to shoot itself, which means it dies. It goes to the graveyard. It comes back out of the graveyard with a +1/+1 counter, triggers the Dredge's Inside. You gain 1 life. You then continuously keep shooting the Young Wolf itself, and you infinitely gain life that way.
Right. So the reason I got confused because Walking Ballista is usually used to ping your opponent, but here we're actually ping our own creature for infinite life. Okay, so
there is a way. There is a loop where we can do infinite damage as well. It just needs a few more steps, but that's just an easy combo that's kind of now useful because of Dredge's Insight. It's really enabled and I'll go infinite life, and then
it's really cool that it's a combination of a consistency card, but also a combo piece. That's really cool.
I've won literally out of nowhere of that before. Having nothing on the battlefield and just ripping a Quarter Cooling or a Young Wolf and just go get an Undying creature and just go, I'm going to go infinite life. And my opponent look at me and then they're like, oh, I want to I'll mill you out. I'm like, I've got endurances in my deck. Like,
So here we probably see a very important part of the game where Marco went -3 on Tamio, targeting the Flame of Anor to force the activation of Agatha's Soul Cauldron out of Felipe. So now I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. You won't believe what happens next.
I imagine it's win the game.
That is a very, very solid guess, because now we're
missing 0 mana right now, are we?
Missing the 0 mana artifact. Here's the mill 3.
Yeah, this is the combo. So basically, Felipe needs one of the endurances. He's got 2 in the main deck.
So I guess, yeah, that's actually a good call. And Marco will know that a card like Endurance is on the cards when it comes to this Yawgmoth deck. So, yeah, he'll go one step at a time here, and then it's kind of up to the opponent to interact at some point.
I'm not entirely sure when the correct point to do it here would be. I'll leave that down to you. Maybe there isn't a correct point to do this.
Yeah, I must admit, I couldn't tell you for sure here. So it's mainly, let's see, because Endurance just puts the cards back into the deck.
It's more we want to get it so I think I don't actually. As long as Marco's do it correctly, stacking the triggers, I don't know if there isn't actually a good point. The idea is to get less than 3 cards in the graveyard, so that a 0 mana spell can't be returned with the breach. But if Marco stacks everything correctly, which I imagine he would, being the great player that he is, it would mean that there is no correct opportunity when to endurance, and we are just going to see Marco go through the steps and potentially take down this game number 1.
Yeah, so let's live in a world where Felipe has the endurance, but he's waiting all until the end where the Thassa's Oracle is cast. The thing is, Marco's managing his own graveyard, so the amount of cards that will get put into the deck is not enough to make the Thassa's Oracle non-lethal. That's the biggest problem, right? Because if it had a million cards in the graveyard to reshuffle, then all of a sudden it wouldn't be lethal. But if he's keeping it nice and clean with it here, having just a couple, then the Oracle is still lethal.
Well, I feel like Marco's shown the loop,
and he's generating mana.
So are we doing this to see the deck, or we do have maybe multiple endurances? There are 2 endurances in the main deck.
Yep.
If we've got double endurance, double green card, that is a way to stop this loop. But I think we would have seen that fired off before now.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Do we ever have? Yeah, I guess.
So yeah, basically the way you fire off 1 endurance, get rid of the graveyard. That means Marco's got to then mill another 3 cards using the activation trigger from the breach, and then you use the second one to get rid of those 3 cards, so then no more cards can be cast for the turn. But that's a big hope. I don't know.
It really is. I guess we should just see this play out. I think there's an endurance in the mix. Otherwise, you would have just asked to see your opponent's deck and kind of move on with things here.
It's also screen time. You know what I mean? You need
to... Oh yeah, that is okay. That is true. If he's paid by the minute.
Chat's asking, what do you think on like a main deck collector oof as like a core target for you for Yawgmoth? So we've got things like, we can find it through Dredger's Insight, we can find it for Quarter Cauldron, we can find it for Green Sun Zenith. No activated ability, so it doesn't work great with Cauldron, or in fact it stops Cauldron as well. But it would turn off all the artifacts on the other side.
Yeah.
My thought is the Breach deck plays removal. So I don't know about main deck in it.
No, that's kind of the thing. The fact that you're hurting your own deck, and the opponent has a few pretty swift answers to it, then at that point it's just not reliable, and it can hurt your own deck a lot. Because if you draw it early, you want to play it out, and then even when you draw the Soul Cauldron, your own deck isn't working. It is in the sideboard of this deck, so I guess it'll come in. It'll just be a bit awkward on some draws.
Now that Swan Song's been flipped, I don't think there's any answer now, right? Like endurance, doesn't that hit endurance?
Swan Song hits basically anything but endurance, I believe.
Okay, that's still good then. That's still good.
Let me just quickly double check. I do remember when this card came out. It counters an enchantment, sorcerer, instant.
We'll just make him go through the line. Okay. Sorted. So we now know all the cards that Marco's got in the main deck. and we get to go to our sideboards, which means we can show you all at home as well what the deck list look like. So let's start over on Philippe's side. Side over on Yargmoth, because we're a game down. We need to shore this up. We need to get back in the match.
Yep.
This looks like the Control for Days' list, as I can see there's 3 Passages in just the basic
Oh,
lands.
okay. Yeah, you're the real expert here, Will. So let me set you up nicely here.
Go for
So
it.
we're playing a synergy-based creature combo deck, but we also have a ton of answers in our sideboard. So how do we balance keeping our own plan intact, but also addressing what the gentleman across the table is trying to do?
It's the thing is, this is what's so good and bad against these decks, right? Like, do I bring in all my artifacts and enchantment hate? Do I bring in my Force of Vigors, bring in my Cactus Oof, my Outlander, Surgical for the graveyard, Fortseas to disrupt their hand, Fatal Pushes to hit the Tamios, and there's a lot going on with this sideboard. You could pretty much make an argument for all 15 cards.
Yeah.
Like, even the Fulminator Mages being able to cut off the Urza Sagas. So it's really, I'm on the play. I need to do my game plan with minimal disruption for my opponent. So what does that look like? Basically 0 mana spells is where I'd be at here.
Yeah.
I'd look at something like the Surgicals, the Fortseases, and the Force of Vigors while I'm on the play. Collector Oof, I think you have to just have as a silver bullet in your deck, or at least the outline Liberator, because the outline at least has the sacrifice ability, the trick, which would work underneath a Soul Cauldron, which would turn all my creatures with +1 counters into disenchant effect.
Yep. Pride Mage type of card.
Yeah, so I don't mind bringing those in, and then basically trimming down a little bit on some of the fat. Like, I don't like the Vizier Poisons in this matchup.
What about the Ballista package with Dredger's Insight? Can you trim those because they don't care about infinite life?
But then the Walking Ballistas also give me infinite damage. So I can do infinite damage with a Walking Ballista. So there's so many different combos.
And the Insight is still a consistency card, despite the infinite life not being relevant. It's still a card that digs and puts together combos.
It kind of acts like what's the sorcery one that was
the Malevolent Rumble.
Yeah, it's like a rumble, but it's got an added bonus for these Yargmoth decks.
Yeah,
that's like the best way to describe this card. Yeah, we don't get the Eldrazi Spawn. Sometimes we actually see both cards being played in these Yargmoth decks.
That's interesting.
But I think I'll just be trimming on a little bit of that. I think the Vizier Poisons can go. I think.
What about a card like Grist? It's very grindy.
I can see cutting down on 1 Grist.
Yeah.
I think Grist on turn 2 through like a Delighted Halfling is one of the best things this deck can do. Like,
yeah,
extremely grindy.
The context is the opponent is trying to do very unfair things. So yeah, that's at least something to consider. But I think we can safely move on to the Breach deck and see what Marco has going on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can go on. It is very much how is Philippe going to decide to attack that matchup?
Yeah,
let's throw it back to you.
What's your
Marco going to bring in to stop?
Yeah, so Marco is now going to be anticipating endurance for sure. He's going to anticipate a generic disruption like the Thoughtseize, and he knows about the Soul Cauldron. So I think he wants some more disenchant effects. Also worth noting is Consign can counter an endurance trigger, so I'll actually play around with that a tiny bit. But other than that, I think I like the Dismember and the Fire Spout. Mainly we try and keep our own plan here. Swan Song can go, Spell Snare can go. I guess Spell Snare counters Soul Cauldron, but it's kind of narrow. So yeah, 2 decks trying to keep their own plan intact while also respecting the reaction out of the opponent. So a lot of leveling going on here where you can take it in different directions.
Yeah, I think Spell Snare is quite good, especially when you're on the draw here. There's a lot of 2-drops that it can hit in the Yargmoth deck. Even just stopping something like a Water Roots, which never feels good when you counter it. But actually, as a Yargmoth player, Water Roots is a great card for me because it's not only letting me advance my mana, it's really good when it's called calling, because it acts basically as 2 mana. It really can enable my game plan more, but it's not good enough to my opponents that they think they should use a resource to stop it. But realistically, I think it is worth that resource when you kind of when you fight into it, because it's stopping my turn and how I've kind of thought about setting up the rest of my game plan.
Yeah, that's a good point about like a hidden value of a card like that, kind of unassuming on surface, but just a very important cog in your plan.
Well, let's see how they're getting on down at the table. Let's see if they've shuffled up and started looking at the opening 7s. Here we go. So we got Marco top of our screen, Speed bottom of our screen. Marco one game up with this powerful breach deck. Both players 2-0 though, going into round number 3 right now.
Definitely the place you want to be, starting off the tournament strong. How's your mindset if you get an early loss? Are you super strong and just marching on, or is it
Oh no,
will I find you crying in the corner?
I've never been that. I've always realized that this is a kid's card game that I'm playing, so I'm never going to actually take it too hard. But no, I think it's a real hidden thing that we don't talk about enough in Magic is the mental side of it all, and just you can't win them all. And I think the second you realize you can't win them all, you kind of lift a huge weight off your shoulders. Yes, everyone wants to do well and everyone wants to win. We all accept that. That's why we all come to these tournaments. But if you look at it in like facts, there's 115 players in the room. Only one player today is going to win.
Yep.
Like you've got a 1 in 115 chance of winning today. You can only do your best. The cards sometimes don't line up in your favor. I've always said the skill in Magic the Gathering is to minimize the amount of luck. It's a game of luck and skill. Your skill needs to minimize the amount of luck that's involved in it. Sometimes, no matter what you drew or how well you perfectly played, your opponent can just draw cards in a better sequence than you to win the game.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But I don't mentally take things to heart like like I used to in my youth, so to speak. I'm just like, it's just another game. There's always going to be more Magic, which is what I love about this game.
Yeah, I like that mindset, especially the fact that there's always more Magic to be played. So we're not quitting the game tomorrow. We are here for the long haul. So might as well treat the game as such. Just bleep on the radar.
No turn 1 play here though over on the on Phil's side, which means we've got either we've took a bit of a heavy mulligan, or we've got some real powerful 2-drops, so we're going to kind of prioritize, potentially a turn 2 Dredges
because you do have pretty hefty. Your opening hand needs to check a few boxes, right? You can't just sit around, because then all of a sudden the plan B of Tamios, Emerys, and Sagas will just kill you. So I think that's part of the reason the breach deck is so strong, that it asks a lot of the opponent to handle the combo aspect, and it has a perfectly solid plan B built in.
I mean, I think Yawgmoth's like just a worse version of the breach, if that makes sense. Like, it's got a really good fair game, but it's also got this combo element that you got to be aware of. Breach just does it a lot quicker because it's got access to Mox Opal, Mox Amp.
Yeah, having the fast mana and the blue cantrips, certainly a big advantage to that. I actually like that comparison. Yawgmoth can sometimes go over the top, sometimes play like a, let's call it a budgeted Junt mid-range deck, and get
take your budget out of it. This deck's beautiful. This isn't, but no.
Junt from Wish.
Basic Forest. What's your basics of choice in paper?
I'm actually I play unhinged.
Okay. I respect it.
It's mainly because I like my cards being all like the same frame. So I really like just new frame. It just looks clean. So I'm not like everybody when it comes to that. I like new frame stuff.
Let's get chat involved. Chat. What basics do you play in paper? Like, what would you use if you're going to play standard and you need 15 of the same basic, or what would you do if you're going to play legacy where you need one of each? Like, I mix it up depending on what format I'm playing and how many of a basic I need.
Right. That's cool. I've also seen people like have one, let's say, beta Underground Sea, and then just fetch that every time they fetch, which is just so funny to see.
Plus this Innkeeper coming down, generating a treasure token.
The Innkeeper is in, yeah. And looks like Felipe decided to go for Overgrown Tomb instead of Forest. So thank you for sparking the basic land conversation, but actually making a little bit of a U-turn there, disrespecting the life total situation and prioritizing, the different colors of mana available.
I like the way that this is being set up. As I reckon that there's a Yawgmoth coming down next turn.
Yeah, and you're basically saying in order for this hand to be a keep, then
this is not the opening you want against like the powerful.
Yes, exactly. So in order to justify the keep, that's what you see in the crystal ball. So
I'm not saying it's good either. I don't think Yawgmoth next turn is good. I can sacrifice one creature. Like, that's meh.
I'll one-up you here. We have the Yawgmoth, but we also have Endurance and Green card, and that's the combination of those made the hand a keep.
That's 2 creatures. Maybe that's what we're doing. We're holding it back on that Endurance. Having we've got a bit of interaction, so to speak, if Marco was to go for it.
The thing is, even if we have Endurance, we probably have to fire it right now, which is kind of sad.
Or in the face of the Emery target,
Yeah,
the bauble,
exactly. Because we're
or that
just gonna
Piffy
get
needle.
grinded out. So yeah, I would fire off endurance right now if I had it, and I wouldn't love it. Do you just want to play against a player with a one-sided Howling Mine? Oh, this is a Soulless
Ooh,
Jailer, right?
Soulless Jailer is going to come in. Okay.
Does that interact well against Emery? I can't remember
So
the.
permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from
Okay, so that
graveyards or
certainly
exile.
works against Emery. So that's way better than pitching for endurance, obviously.
Also, no third land there.
No third lane for the Yawgmoth player, but crisis averted on the Emery recursion. Tamio still going strong.
Marco's going to have another little look at the Soulless Jailer, the 0/4. That basically is just it's a wall. It's got a little bit of added text to it. It's going to stop that bauble.
It can actually it can attack in a pinch. No defender on that card, but yeah, an 0/4 is not the most aggressive creature stats, of course, but it dodges some removal, and I think that's way more important.
How many? 115 players battling out in Modern today. And then tomorrow, obviously, we're hoping they all return and play Legacy. So if you're a fan of Legacy, tomorrow's the day you need to tune in. Make sure you hit that follow button if you are a fan of Modern or Legacy action, or just in general watching live Paper Magic, because there's going to be lots of it brought to you here from the European United League. And we'll talk to you about what that is throughout today's broadcast. We've got 2 sets of casting teams bringing you action today. 7 rounds of Modern, plus that top 8.
Yeah, so plenty more Magic to be played, but we're currently spectating players with the optimal start. And yeah, the flipped Tamio is it's a threat. It's a countdown for on the side of Felipe.
Do remember, Gris can deal with that. If we can find a Gris can not only hit creatures, it can also hit planeswalkers. So it's not the end of the line. But on the other flip side of it, you've got to think, well, do I really care about this Tamio? That's like 3 turns away from ultimating. If I was over on Philippine's side, I want to win the game in the next 3 turns.
Yeah.
Here's that Yawgmoth we spoke about.
And that is where Yawgmoth comes in when it comes to winning the game.
So we're going to go fetch up a basic here, I imagine. Keep our life total nice and high, because, of course, we need a nice life total to use Yawgmoth and get as many extra triggers from it as possible, or activations as possible. Not that we've got much on the battlefield we actually want to sacrifice right now, nor do we have loads of green creatures to be able to at least cord for a combo piece.
Right.
It's a little digging, end of turn. Yep, obviously that's not the Mox Opal, it's the Mox Amber, so that can be tapped for blue.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting game where if Marco can just execute plan A after killing the jailer, I guess that's a tricky part right now. But if he doesn't, then you have to worry about the combination of Yawgmoth with something like a Young Wolf. So yeah, pretty interesting here who's actually the combo deck and who's trying to not lose on the spot.
I feel like that's always been a play draw dependent question when 2 combo decks go against each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least the starting point, right? Then the game can develop in a certain way, and then all of a sudden that can kind of change even throughout the game. I think a good old classic Magic article like Who's the Beatdown? A lot of that stuff is for sure going to be relevant here as well. Is this a stock up?
I think I'm literally just looking at the list here, and I'm like, is that what I think it is? It is 1 stock up out of the sideboard. One of the new cards from Aetherdrift, which is seeing a lot more play than I thought it ever would. It is a 3-mana sorcery stock up. For look at the top 5 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and put the rest at the bottom in any order.
Yeah.
Why is this seeing so much play?
Well, this card is seeing play because it is a card that lets your combo deck have a lot of consistency. So let's say you're looking for both combo pieces. You can even get that. You're looking for 1 combo piece. Digging 5 cards down is just amazing. So you should just see this as a divination kind of dig through time. It's just very, very strong, especially when the games slow down a little bit. People have more answer cards. For the grindy matchups, let me put it that way. So yeah, this card is awesome if your deck has a combo finish. It's even stable in Legacy and Vintage.
I was just about to say, have I seen this in Legacy? Because I think I have.
Legacy is like a minor role player. People are playing around with it, but Vintage, it's all over the shop, and yeah, lots of stock ups getting cast these days.
Like we did there, all over the shop. Little references there. It's fine. Have you worked out the spelunking reference from earlier yet?
What? No, I haven't at all.
Oh, okay. I wonder. No one in chat said either. So maybe it's just me in my own little world thinking that spelunking makes you think of Batman.
But why is that? Can you, or is it, not worth your time to explain the joke to us?
In the the Christian Bale ones, the very first Batman there, where he's talking to Morgan Freeman about he needs to improve the suit or get the suit sorted. He goes, it's because I like to do extreme spelunking. And
Okay.
and he's like, oh, I need to be able to turn my head to the left more because the cow was obviously originally like, oh, this is for all the spelunking that you've been doing. He's like, yeah, spelunk. That's it's actually spelunking is cave diving, I believe. So that's where the reference is. Anyway, Unholy Heat.
Unholy Heat's on the green creature here.
Well, we got land, sorcery, artifact. I don't think we got delirium.
No, that probably explains it because Yawgmoth and the Jailer are both toughness 4. We get a little bit of a Yawgmoth activation and response.
We're gonna sacrifice it. Hit a -1/-1 counter on the Enmery. Go fetch. I guess if we could hit Surveil land and pit creature in the graveyard.
I wonder what did the Tameo just return a heat from the graveyard?
It did. Can it do that in the face of the?
It can. You can return stuff. You can just not cast stuff from your graveyard.
So yeah. So it did. So we're looking to high roll here and hit that delirium land. Also don't want that, so we're gonna put that into the graveyard. No wooded Fittle action happening on Pivo's side.
Do you think the Yawgmoth deck untaps and wins the game here?
Soul Cauldron now.
Let's see, Soul Cauldron. What can you do with that card in a spot like this?
Right now, not a huge amount,
because you do need a relevant creature with a good activated ability in your graveyard to kind of for it to be a combo piece on your side. So maybe it's just another card to keep the opponent's graveyard in check in this particular game.
I think I can see a Surgical in hand as well for Philippe.
He did bring in 1 copy of Surgical, so that's a good call. Maybe that was even part of like keeping the hand to begin with.
I don't hate an attack here towards the Tameo.
Yep, definitely forcing the chum block on the
Emery. That now makes delirium. Remember,
because you already said that there was artifact, land,
sorcery.
The sorcery being stock up. Yeah, that's true.
So we definitely need to add some creatures to the battlefield. Like Yawgmoth is a creature combo deck at the end of the day. But if we could play the Soul Cauldron that we know about, that's a way of turning off delirium if that Unholy Heat was to get targeted towards the Yawgmoth.
So let's see here. If you play that card out, you actually give your opponent a window to respond with heat.
So this is interesting as well. We know about heat.
Exactly. So I think in a perfect world, we make our play before forcing the opponent to chum block. As in, we wanted to make our play on the first main phase. How do you like that? So make sure that there's no delirium.
Well, it doesn't do anything right now because you can't. Oh no, you can add red mana, but there's no third artifact, so we couldn't activate it.
Oh, Opal is not on. The opponent's actually tapped out. Okay, then never mind about the sequencing.
But here comes the Unholy Heat. This might hit the endurance, or no, we can use the Surgical here to.
Oh wow!
Turn off the delirium, but then if there's another instant in Marco's hand, that would turn it back on.
We can choose to target. Yeah, you're right. What if we? Yes, you're right. So we can't even, surgical, the sorcery out of the graveyard, because then an instant response would make the heat delirious.
Do we need to though? Like, is this just a Marco getting rid of a creature? Maybe we just accept the hit and save this Surgical for the key moment when he tries to go off with a breach.
The thing is, the Jailer is kind of the hate piece here, right? So if we can keep that in play, we can't die to the opponent's combo.
So we're going to get rid of the Emery, and we get to look at the hand, which doesn't have an instant. Well, it does. It has a spell snare, but it's hasn't got a way of turning off this delirium, which means it will just be 2 damage getting dealt to the.
Yeah. So just a quick thing here. I would actually heavily consider not exiling the Emeries from the deck here. I actually don't mind my opponent drawing Emeries in this spot.
Oh, what, you just want to try and leave him with a bit of a dead card?
Exactly. So I get rid of the one in the graveyard to make sure Unholy Heat is not delirious, but then I leave the 3 copies in the deck so that my opponent has 3 kind of bad cards.
Okay. I can see the argument for that.
Because we're making this play, and we get full information on the opponent's hand, so we know the Jailer's living. And with that card in play, Emery's just a, 1/2.
There is I guess there's the weird loop that you can loop Emery's to mill yourself out to then get yourself to the fastest Oracle, but you can't do that
There's
through
some
the Jailer.
self-milling, but I think we should be able to race that with just the fact that we're a creature deck. But you're definitely right. It's not 100% free to do. Also, you're putting a lot of you're placing a high bet on the Soulless Jailer surviving if you do that. But yeah, I would just love that my opponent's next roster was an Emery. That's mainly it.
So Marco's going to fetch 2-mana Breach.
I'm trying to understand the point of that card.
It's permanence, right? So you can still cast the Heat.
Permanent
cards in graveyard can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyard or exile. So you can't do that, right?
Why are we then? Yeah.
To get the another delirium in there, or maybe a little misstep for Marco there.
That is probably it. Yeah, Breach versus Jailer is not a good play.
Well, he's going to learn from it. He's going to be kicking himself. We get to get 2 points of damage in, drop that Tamiyo down to 1.
So Tamiyo is actually doing a very good job stopping this chip damage. So we need to turn up the heat here if possible on the side of the Yawgmoth deck.
Can't quite make out what's in how. We know there's the Soul Cauldron, which the only reason and Marco knows about the Soul Cauldron. The only reason we wouldn't play it is in case we had something like a free drop we wanted to cast, which was Endurance. Yeah. Or how about a Dredger's Insight? Okay, so we get to see the new card, which again is great when the follow-up play is a Soul Cauldron. If we can hit anything, we hit.
Yeah, then we get into the territory where our own Collector Oof is actually disrupting the Soul Cauldron.
I think we might have a judge call. I think for my back saying looked at the top 2 cards when milling over this last one, unfortunately. So 1, 2, 3 knows what this card is, but I think looked at the one underneath it. I think they were stuck together.
Yeah, classic maneuvering in paper Magic is always a bit more complicated. So
this is why we have judges.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what the fix is going to be. It'll probably be some sort of shuffle, pick cards back, etc., etc. But this is one thing that I don't think gets spoken about enough is some people feel awkward calling a judge.
Yeah.
And you should never feel awkward calling a judge, right? They are here to help the game to come to its conclusion that it should be, make sure all the triggers are followed by the rules and the actions of what the cards do. If you ever don't know what your opponent's card does because it's in a foreign language or something, or you're not sure of an interaction, we saw with the spelunking, the mother of machines, and how the bounce lands were working last time.
Yep. And with an amulet in play and all of that. Yep.
This is exactly why we have judges and what they're there for. And you should never feel bad by just putting your hand up, raising, say, judge, come over. If it takes 2 or 3 minutes to resolve your interaction, they'll give you the extra time back. Yep. So you're not going to be at a disadvantage for calling them. They are literally there for us, the players.
Yeah, great call. And then just a small thing to add is you can even ask a judge a question away from the table. So sometimes you want your opponent to, listen in on that conversation, and sometimes you don't. So obviously judges can't give you strategical advice, but they can tell you how things work. So yeah, definitely take advantage of that. There's a lot of misconceptions about how to utilize judges at tournaments. So yeah, great topic.
I tend to do the can I ask you away from the table because 9 out of 10 times the question I'm asking will give away what I've got in my hand.
Yeah, for sure. Then if you're playing against Sherlock Holmes, they will solve the case and you give away some stuff. So yeah, I mean, I feel like you're halfway there to shuffling in the 15 cards. You're doing a lot of high level stuff, Will.
I'm trying my best right now. I'm just actually thinking Soulless Jailer and Undying Creature.
Yeah, that doesn't work how you want it to
No.
either. So right now you have some cards in play that hopefully hurt your opponent more than they hurt you.
The advantage we've got, though, while we've got a Yawgmoth, is we decide when we can turn that off. We can just sacrifice the
Yep.
creature itself.
Yep, definitely. And the opponent is most likely not winning the game unless they get rid of those creatures. So there's a lot of mitigating factors here, but they are, kind of annoying for our own playing here. Shutting off the soul guy. Shutting off the soul cauldron.
We got three cards in hand. One of them we know is a Soul Cauldron,
Mm-hmm.
which I still like deploying it, even if we can't use it.
Yep.
But maybe we were waiting till now because we've got the like halving down, which means it's uncounterable if we're going to bring it down that way.
Yeah, tiny upside there. Also, I will mention we still haven't found a way to overcome the Tameo +1. Right now, the game is at a stall, which just shows how much value you get out of your one-drop creature, that it's now stalling the game to your advantage from the side of the breach deck.
So we're just to be realistically, that we don't. I don't know if we know if we want it dead, so to speak. Yeah, the chip damage would be a lot better going to face and just winning the game that way. But just being able to stop it from ultimating or bringing back a card from the graveyard is priority number one. Can't activate that right now. We're in a Collector Oof, right? Or is Collector Oof just one-sided? And I'm just
Collector Oof is on everybody, so we can certainly not use our Soul Cauldron like this. Let's see if any of the players catch this one, or a judge will.
I'm just getting it passed down to the
a Magic legend, a good friend of mine, Randy Bueller. When that card got spoiled, he called it Null Rodney, which I liked a lot.
It's one of my favorite cards in Modern at the minute. I really like it a lot.
Collector Roof is another just amazing design, and turning that effect into a creature. It just has good lore. It's like this little creature who collects artifacts in its cave. It's just so good.
So I'm going to block one there. 1 point damage is going to go towards that Tameo by the looks of it. Can't.
Yes, now we're even slowing down the action, and here comes the activation that we don't want to see, Will.
Yeah, I've tried to get it down to the floor. Let me start pinging more people. We're trying to get it passed down to the players.
Definitely.
It's definitely it is a double-sided. In fact, both of these two like hate pieces we brought in are double-sided.
Mm-hmm.
Does work for cards that we've got, but also doesn't work for him. And Marco's scooping it up. Okay, well, we'll get it passed down to the tables anyway. Like, we want to keep everything nice and clean and clear here, but it is on both players. Both players did miss that interaction, but for us at home, the good thing we get is we get to go to a game number 3. So Marco will be on the play here. Let's see if we see more 15 cards getting shuffled in and cards coming back out.
Yep. Let's see if he goes for the nice guy Will approach or the super cutthroat eco.
The try hard approach. That's your opinion, right? I'm just like, I'm going to bring these 2 in, these 3 out. Present 59 cards.
But to be fair, Marco is like the nicest pro you'll ever meet.
Oh,
I don't think I can think about anybody who's nicer.
Reed's got to be up there.
Reed is for sure up there. Yeah, you're right.
Calcano.
Okay.
Calcano is one of the nicest people I've ever met as well. Like
maybe Simon is also in the top 5.
Simon is like he's probably the smartest player. Like, I feel so dumb when I'm next to him. I'm like, I didn't even think of it like that. Like, he literally works on a different level, that brain. I'm just like, that's how I know I can't be a professional Magic player.
And he does a very great job of making sure that his opponent is also very comfortable at the table. So that's kind of what they have in common with, Reed and the Marco Del Pivos of the world. Christian Colcano, good shout as well.
I'm trying to think. Look, don't get me wrong. If I haven't said your name, I apologize. But one of our casters later on, 12 Severin, great.
Yeah, exactly.
With great, really friendly. Love meeting him. Absolute delight to hang around with, and just makes everything better. You know what I mean? Mengu as well. Look, we miss Mengu. Mengu's a great personality to
Yeah, you're right.
Interact thing. It's all pretty cool. I love to see. and interacting. The gathering part of Magic is the key part in my opinion, especially now I'm getting to my older age and growing a beard. I think when you grow a beard, you have to kind of enjoy other parts of it. Okay, so we've just got from the floor there. So a judge has issued a warning to both players for the obviously the illegal plays that happen there. So this is something that can happen in Magic. Earlier rounds, you take a warning. You're like, yeah, sure, put it on the back of my match slip, whatever, get adds to my record. But the later on the tournament goes, the more fatigue you get playing these complicated combo decks, using that brain power, moving into it. Like that, if you start picking up these warnings, you get 3 of the same warning. That equals a game loss.
Yeah,
that is not what you want in the later rounds, or even when you're into the top 8.
Definitely, I've seen a few of those unfortunate situations during my time where small mistakes that are not ill-intended, but they can add up simply because we need to have some kind of order, and that's why we have rules and why we have judges. So in a situation like this, we just want to make sure that we only get one situation on camera that is, not allowed, and not 2, right? We're trying to minimize the damage here.
Yeah, I've actually had it in the past where I was playing against someone and they got a deck check, misregistered decks, and got a game loss, and then the first game we play, they accidentally drew 8 cards instead of 7. Was a warning.
Yeah.
Did it again. It's just like you feel really bad when you just sat there wanting to play a game of Magic, and just when it rains it pours sometimes, and it's a little bit awkward.
That's where the stress comes into play, as you say. Fatigue, long day. Maybe it's your first feature match. Maybe there's a lot on the line. Maybe there's just a lot of stuff here where Paper Magic has that extra element of the emotions. I guess is fair to say.
That's like one thing to talk about. Players, it's like we want it at home and you want it at home to watch Paper Magic, right? Players have got to be willing to play their feature match on camera.
Yes.
There's a lot of pressure that comes with that. It's like an experience thing. The more you do it, the more you're like, sure, whatever. But at the minute, there's 170 people watching these 2 players play. That's a lot of pressure. If you do something wrong, you accidentally make a misstep or something like that, you might not live it down, especially Marco, because I'll give him a load of stick on Twitter later on. But that is in a friendly way. Sometimes it can affect people mentally, of they kind of feel that extra pressure that they wouldn't normally feel in another match. So we do have to tip our hats to them, giving us the opportunity to cast over their game and present it to you all at home. But then we got to also respect the amount of pressure that does come with that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we can't stress that enough, that this is it's very easy to sit in your comfy chair and and think about what you would have done. But the reality of the situation is there's a totally different stress level for the players.
So I don't. Both players mulligan down to 6. I think Felipe kept to 1 lander with a Surveil land. Managed to find the Verde Catacombs with that Surveil land. That's why we see the turn 2 Young Wolf and that this fetch untapped. I think we're going to see another Surveil land to try and hit some more land drops.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. In the meantime, Marco is resolving Stock Up for the 2nd time this match. And Stock Up is a card that, if you're not under a lot of pressure, that is amazing. You get to really sculpt your hand with the 2 best cards out of the top 5 and just really setting yourself up for success.
Would you say that card's going up in stock?
Yeah, definitely. Because the first time you read the card, it's like, oh, well, a little bit of a divination, a little bit better than divination, right? But in reality, it's closer to Dig Through Time than it is to divination. And that is a card on the ban list.
Okay, here we go. Surveil, looking for that extra land drop.
2nd Surveil, yeah. That's pretty cool. Both of these decks are playing a couple of Surveil lands. Basically, it's a smooth out, as we talked a little bit about earlier. Cost is so small, but it's so strong to do that. And when you bin the Fatal Push here, what does that tell you if you're Marco? Your opponent just puts a Fatal Push into the graveyard with a Surveil.
Rips the land anyway. One of the new Verges. We're going to get in there the Young Wolf, a little bit of chip damage. This is plan, realistically, plan A of the Yawgmoth decks is just get in there with rubbish creatures that no one wants to use any of their cards to interact with. And then game 2 is actually the combo element. What can we do here? Green Suns for 2.
Green Sun Zenith for 2 here. Are we just going oof?
I don't hate oof. I can see the argument for it.
Oof is a card that can prevent bad things from happening, so that seems That seems like a solid play.
But also depends on our hand, right? Like what have we got in there? We could think, oh, if we're drawing cards, we could try and get we can get like a Scavenging Ooze, Prosperous Innkeeper to advance our mana, even a Wall of Roots if needs be. But Collective
Yes.
might just be the safe play, as you said.
You're definitely right that those are your options. How much you want to focus on your own strategy, how much you want to shut down your opponent. And we did have the choice between Scavenging Ooze, although then we would be tapped out, right? So we would potentially just pass the turn and lose the game. So I like the Oof here to prevent disaster.
Do you see a Flame of Anor in Marco's
Ooh.
hand? But it would only have one mode, no wizards on the battlefield just yet.
Yeah, at the moment it's a 3-mana shock, which will get the job done, but it's also now we're in an interesting spot with regards to the timing here, because Flame of Anor is an instant, but Felipe is playing a Court of Calling deck, so passing the turn and letting the opponent untap the creatures is not free, so there's a little bit of a timing here. I would imagine Marco's mindset is to kill the Oof end of turn, and then oh, it looks like we're already killing it now to prevent damage. Makes sense with Dismember being a -4 life point card to begin with.
I like that they came in because that can hit basically anything. It can hit the Yawgmoth,
Yeah.
it can hit the Oof. It now turns back on our artifacts.
It's very mana efficient, but it's also hard on the life total. So let's say Felipe gets a little bit of a more of the rubbish plan going when then it actually can add up.
I think did we pass the turn? Is this why we're seeing the Seville Land end of turn now?
Wow, that's actually a good call. I actually expected that we would move straight into the second main phase, but I guess already a pass of the turn has been made.
Like there's only a few cards that we could have in hand that we wouldn't be able to play on that turn, right? Like it's not going to be a Chord because we probably wouldn't have taxed if it was a Chord. It wasn't a Green Sun because we would have cast a Green Sun.
Yes.
We didn't cast a Cauldron, a Dragon's Insight, any of our creatures. The only thing would be
we're not fatal pushing the Tamiyo either.
Nope, there's the fourth land. It could be just a handful of Yawgmoths.
Now we are. So this is a bit strange.
So in response, we're going to try and draw some cards. We're going to deal with the Young Wolf, get a +1/+1 counter on that.
Oh, at least it doesn't flip. I actually thought it flipped here, but we're just drawing 2 here, not up to the third one.
Oh my word! If we could flip it in response, that would be backbreaking.
But it's not. Interesting timing here on the fatal push. Oh wow, I know why. Because if you do it on the opponent's turn, then the Flame of Anor will flip the Tamiyo. But if you wait until your turn, it will not flip. So great play by Philip here.
Are we going to see a breach? Here we are.
Here's Underworld Breach, and I think now we will learn why Felipe held up 3 mana for like the previous, like the turn before. Yeah.
There's like, is this the right time to do the endurance?
I think so, yeah, because then you can get into like value breach, and you don't want that to happen either. So I actually like this.
But if the follow-up is a grinding station, does he not just win?
Grinding station and a 0, right?
Well, grinding station, we can sacrifice the Mox Opal that's in play.
Oh, it's already in play. Yeah,
so we can at least get like a couple of this. Emery's going to add another bunch to the graveyard.
Emery's awesome here for Pivo. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think you have to do it right away with the endurance. If you wait, then oh, let's see what this is. Force of Vigor in response.
Of Vigor in response. Now, okay, it looks like the camera's frozen for us, but what were the 2 targets you would pick with this?
Yeah, so we do have Urza's Saga in play. So I would probably kill the Saga alongside the Breach. Very, very nice bottleneck of interaction here.
And that makes sense why we wasn't playing anything.
But you were definitely onto the right track. That Marco's point of train of thought should be, okay, my opponent is not playing anything. Then what does that tell me about the opponent's hand? And then it kind of boils down to all of these interactive cards. So definitely a good way to think about the game. That if your opponent is not doing what you expect them to do, then what is the reason for that? And here comes
Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, here comes Scavenging Ooze. This time with mana up, which is very strong against opposing Emery. Also notice Marco's life total here. The Dismember, the rubbish beatdown is adding up.
I told you, plan A of these Yawgmoth decks is the beat you down with rubbish creatures.
Yeah. So here comes
Surgical.
Surgical on the breach and the draw step, I believe.
How many hate pieces has this been so far? 1, 2, 3. Is this a fifth, maybe?
So
Marco's going to extend the hand. Says, you've got me. Jeez.
Yeah, that was amazing to see how the Yawgmoth deck just transformed into basically a policeman saying, "Nope, can't do this, can't do that either." Yeah, so yeah, that was 5 pieces. No, we milled over 5 pieces because one of those pushes were milled over. Whew.
It's actually interesting because, like, coming from the Yawgmoth side, I've always felt like I'm advantaged in this. Like, I think like I've got a good plan versus the team decks. But then the data shows different. The data shows, it's actually quite a bad matchup, and I'm not exactly why. But